Burt Lancaster wasn't supposed to become a Hollywood legend. Born Burton Stephen Lancaster on November 2, 1913, in New York City, he grew up in a tough working-class neighborhood, far removed from the glitz of Hollywood. His early years were anything but glamorous. Raised in a modest household, Lancaster had to grow up fast, learning how to handle life's challenges with grit and determination. But what really made him different, even as a young man, was his physical ability. He wasn't just athletic. He was a natural performer. He took to acrobatics and circus life like he was born for it. That part of his story wasn't just a passing phase. It became the foundation of who he was. Long before the world saw him on screen, he was flying through the air under the big top, developing strength, timing, and discipline. Traits that would later set him apart in Hollywood. In the 1940s, Lancaster made a bold move. Hollywood was buzzing, and while many tried to break in, very few actually did. But Lancaster had something others didn't. He was tall, undeniably handsome, and had a presence that made people look twice. His physical background meant he could do stunts other actors wouldn't dare attempt, but more than that, he had charisma. Real, natural charisma that couldn't be faked. His breakout came in 1946 with the film The Killers, where he played a doomed ex-boxer. Audiences were captivated. He wasn't just a tough guy. He brought emotion, depth, and a sense of tragic vulnerability to the role. That performance changed everything. Lancaster had arrived, and he was here to stay. What made him stand out wasn't just his looks or his physical talents, it was how he used them. While many actors were content playing the same types of roles, Lancaster refused to be boxed in. One day he was in a gritty film noir, the next a grand western, and after that, an emotionally charged drama. He had the rare ability to portray both strength and sensitivity, often in the same scene. He brought something real to the screen, something that audiences connected with. And behind the scenes, he wasn't just letting the studios call the shots. In the 1950s, Lancaster took a huge risk that would change Hollywood forever. He co-founded a production company called Hecht Hill Lancaster, alongside Harold Hecht and James Hill. At the time, this was almost unheard of for actors. Most stars played it safe and did what the big studios told them. But Lancaster wasn't interested in playing it safe. He wanted control over his work. With this company, he began producing films that actually meant something. Movies with heart, with social relevance, and with real artistic value. Marty, 1955, one of their early productions, went on to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. It wasn't flashy or packed with action. It was honest, raw, and completely different from what audiences were used to. This wasn't just about making movies. It was about changing the industry. Lancaster kept pushing. In 1960, he gave one of the most intense performances of his career in Elmer Gantry, playing a traveling salesman turned preacher with a complicated past. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor for that role. 2 years later, he was nominated again for Birdman of Alcatraz, portraying a convicted murderer who transforms into a bird expert while serving a life sentence. These roles weren't easy. They were dark, layered, and emotionally exhausting, but Lancaster brought them to life with honesty and power. He had become one of Hollywood's most respected actors, not because he followed the rules, but because he challenged them. Outside of film, Lancaster was just as bold. He wasn't afraid to speak his mind, even when it was risky. He was a strong supporter of civil rights during a time when many celebrities chose to stay silent. He used his fame to promote equality and justice. He stood with Martin Luther King Jr., supported unions, and championed artists' rights. He didn't care if it made him unpopular in certain circles. What mattered to him was fairness and doing what he believed was right. This sense of conviction only added to his legend. Even as he aged, Lancaster refused to fade into the background. He continued acting through the 1970s and 1980s, always pushing boundaries and choosing roles that mattered. One of his most haunting performances came in The Swimmer, 1968. A strange, emotional story about a man who tries to reconnect with his past by swimming through the pools of his wealthy neighbors. The film didn't follow the usual Hollywood formula, but Lancaster gave it everything. Then came Atlantic City in 1980, where he played an aging small-time gangster clinging to a past that no longer existed. It was powerful, emotional, and earned him another Academy Award nomination. Even late in his career, Lancaster could still steal the show. His personal life, much like his career, was full of twists and turns. His first marriage was to June Ernst, a fellow circus performer. Their bond was built around a shared love for acrobatics and performance. But despite their similarities, the relationship didn't last. They separated sometime in the late 1930s, with reports of their divorce ranging from 1940 to as late as 1946. After that came Norma Anderson, a woman he met while performing for troops during World War II. They married in 1946 and had 5 children together: Bill, James, Susan, Joanna, and Sheila. Norma wasn't just a wife, she was a partner in every sense, deeply involved in political causes and civil rights. Together, they supported movements that would shape American history. But even with all that shared passion, their relationship couldn't survive the pressures of fame and time. They separated in 1966 and divorced 3 years later. During that difficult period, Lancaster found himself in a stormy relationship with Jackie Bone, a hairdresser he met on set. Their time together was chaotic, even violent at times. One night, at a dinner party filled with industry insiders, Bone famously smashed a wine bottle over Lancaster's head. The relationship came to an end not long after she had a spiritual awakening, which created a distance Lancaster couldn't bridge. His final marriage, to Susan Martin in 1990, was quieter. By then, Lancaster was older, dealing with health issues, and less interested in the public eye. Susan was there for him during his final years, offering peace and stability after a life lived at full speed. But behind all the fame, the awards, and the marriages, Lancaster carried secrets that he only revealed much later in life. In a world that demanded a carefully controlled image, he kept part of himself hidden. He had romantic relationships with several well-known male figures in Hollywood. Something that, during his prime, could have ended his career instantly. He waited until the very end of his life to speak about it, choosing honesty over silence in his final chapter. One of those relationships was with Cary Grant, the suave, charming actor who was beloved around the world. Their connection, formed in the late 1940s, was quiet, careful, and deeply affectionate. But it was always under wraps, mostly due to Grant's fear of being exposed. Then there was a strange chapter involving J. Edgar Hoover, the controversial FBI director known for secrecy and power plays. Lancaster described their connection as more about dominance and mystery than love, an odd, intense experience that stuck with him. Perhaps his most emotional bond was with Rock Hudson, the leading man who defined 1950s masculinity. They shared a private romance at the height of Hudson's fame, sneaking away for road trips and stolen moments far from cameras and gossip. Hudson lived in fear of being outed, and while Lancaster respected that, the pressure eventually pulled them apart. Their story was tender and sad, shaped by the world's unwillingness to let people live freely. Another unexpected chapter involved Ricky Nelson, the clean-cut teen heartthrob nearly 2 decades younger than Lancaster. Their affair didn't last long, but it had a deep impact on Nelson, who saw Lancaster as both a lover and a mentor. Lancaster ended things gently, believing Nelson needed time to grow into his own life. Then there was Marlon Brando. That relationship was fire and chaos, 2 passionate artists crashing into each other. Their affair was as much about artistic rivalry and intellectual combat as it was about romance. But in the end, their strong personalities clashed too hard, and it couldn't last. These revelations shattered the image many had of Lancaster. The world saw a rugged, fearless hero. But underneath, there was a man full of contradictions, brave but cautious, powerful yet vulnerable, always wrestling with the need to be free in a world that demanded control. In sharing these truths before his death, Lancaster wasn't seeking shock or attention. He was simply choosing honesty over illusion. On October 20, 1994, Burt Lancaster passed away after suffering his 3rd heart attack. He was 80 years old. He died in his Century City apartment, far from the circus tents and movie sets that had defined his life. In keeping with his wishes, there was no memorial service, no funeral. His ashes were scattered beneath a quiet oak tree in Westwood Memorial Park, marked only by a simple plaque. No fanfare, no speeches, just a quiet goodbye from a man who had spent a lifetime performing. Burt Lancaster left behind more than just films. He left a legacy of courage, on screen and off. He challenged Hollywood's rules, told powerful stories, and lived his truth even when it cost him. His life was messy, bold, and real, and that's what made it unforgettable. If you were surprised by what you learned today or felt something unexpected about this Hollywood icon, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stick around. There's always more behind the scenes than we think.